So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On the eve of Pochiche Boishak and Rabindra Jayanti, we are pleased to welcome you to the Victoria Memorial Hall to a talk that has a relevance today because Professor Ananda Lal, the speaker for this evening, is going to give us new vistas into Tagorean theatre. And before he does that, I would like to request Dr. Jayanta Sengupta, Secretary and Curator of Victoria Memorial Hall, to kindly welcome the audience and introduce the speaker for this evening.
Thank you and good evening everybody and a very warm welcome to this evening's lecture to celebrate Rabindranath Tagore's birthday, which is tomorrow. We have already launched these celebrations in the Victoria Memorial Hall by putting on display just about an hour ago 2 letters written by Rabindranath Tagore to Dilip Kumar Rai in 1924 and 1928 respectively. And now we contribute our tribute to Rabindranath Tagore by this lecture on New Vistas on Tagorean Theatre. And it's a privilege and an honor for the Victoria Memorial Hall to have with us here tonight to give this lecture the eminent theatre scholar and critic, Professor Ananda Lal. As all of you may know, till recently Professor Ananda Lal was Professor of English and the coordinator of the Rabindranath Tagore Studies Center in Jadavpur University. He served as the head of the Department of English from 2007 to 9, which he joined as a reader in 1993. And before that, he taught in the Department of Comparative Literature in Jadavpur University. And before that, in the Department of English in the University of Kolkata from 1989 to 91, and the Department of Theatre in the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign from 1981 to 86. As a senior Fulbright Fellow, he also taught at Indiana University in Bloomington in 2005. In addition, he directs the Writers' Workshop, the pioneering publisher of Indian writing in English, in which he succeeded his father, Professor P. Lal, in 2010. And he has been the theatre critic in some of the city's leading dailies for more than 3 decades. Professor Ananda Lal's many books include the Oxford Companion to Indian Theatre, published in 2004, which is the first reference work in any language on that subject. Rabindranath Tagore, 3 plays, published originally in 1987 and then reprinted in 2001, which happens to be the first full-length study in English of Tagorean drama. Theatres of India, published in 2009, Twist in the Folk Tale, published in 2004, Shakespeare on the Calcutta Stage, published in 2001, and Rasa, the Indian Performing Arts, in 1995. His research-based CDs include The Voice of Rabindranath Tagore, which came out in 1997 on Tagore's own audio recordings. He has published over 40 essays in various books and journals and over 1,000 reviews in newspapers and periodicals. He is also an active translator from Bengali to English. Finally, it bears remembering that Professor Lal has directed 20-odd theatre productions, most of them as academic practical courses for the Department of English. And he has also worked in another 20, including such internationally acclaimed successes as Tim Supple's Midsummer Night's Dream. He has a 30-year-old portfolio in television and film as an award-winning scriptwriter, researcher, commentator, narrator, and subtitler. And also 5 years experience as a DJ for All India Radio. And he has been interviewed by BBC, by Radio Nederland, and by Doordarshan. A Cambridge Fellow for the British Council in 1994 and a Fulbright Fellow in 2005. He has lectured widely in the United States, Canada, UK, Europe, Australia, and of course, India. And that's all I have to say for now. Like all of you, I'm looking forward eagerly to listening to his lecture today. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Professor Ananda Lal in to speak on New Vistas into Tagorean Theatre. Thank you.
a small token from the Victoria Memorial to the Speaker of the evening. To that long list of achievements of Professor Lal that Joyanto has already enumerated, I would just like to add that, he's also an authority on several kinds of music. And one of the fascinating performances of his, or a presentation of his, which I attended a long, long time ago, maybe 3 decades ago, was Strawberry Fields, was it? Right? Do you remember that? Right. So he is quite an authority in all the kinds of music with which we grew up. We are almost the same age, but we grew up with that kind of music in the 60s and the 70s. And if anybody wants to consult him on any of that aspect of music too, you're most welcome to do so. So with that, I hand over the microphone to Professor Ananda Lal, but not before reminding you people to switch off your mobile phones or put them on silent. Kindly make yourselves inaccessible to people for the next hour and a half. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jayanto and Raju, for such a wonderful introduction. I think that's already eaten up a lot of the time I had for my presentation, but thank you nonetheless. I'm a bit of an interloper over here, because what I'm going to be doing is combining the art world with the theatre world, which is something that not too many people do, which is a sad thing, especially in India, because the connections between the fine arts and the performing arts go back in our culture a long, long way. Yet, in recent times, there has been very little attempt to bring these forms together, to see theatre and other performing arts for the integrated, consolidated artwork that they actually are. Because after all, as all of us instinctively know, theatre, dance, to some extent performed music too, these are all dependent on all kinds of visual arts stimuli, which inputs which go into the making of the production. The person concerned whom we are talking about, Rabindranath, was himself a master at virtually every aspect of stagecraft, theatre, design, acting, choreography, music, everything. Yet, what's been happening, especially in our own, we can talk, let's talk more about Kolkata circles, since that's where we are, is this unfortunate emphasis on Rabindranath's literature, which ignores, ignores might be a strong word, but let me use that anyway, and we can always discuss the merits of that word later on. His equally works of genius in many of the other arts that he was involved in. There has been considerable work, I do not deny, on his paintings, on his music, on even his dance, separately. And I'm not bringing into discussion over here his enormous output in the social sciences, in education, which we all know of. I'm confining myself to the arts specifically. But theatre is the most neglected, as far as Tagore is concerned, area of research. This primarily arises from the Indian establishments, educational establishment and cultural establishments' neglect of theatre. Whereas music, because of its classical background and continuing classical tradition, likewise with dance, does have an academic, and perhaps you can argue it's too classicized, but both music and dance in India have a certain scholarly tradition. Theatre has languished, and the amount of research that should have gone into the creations of Tagore has never been done. as a result of which outside Bengal, non-Bengalis, I'm not even talking about outside India, think about Maharashtra, Delhi, Tamil Nadu, they do not know, to the extent that Girish Karnad, as all of you are probably aware, does not think that Tagore deserves any stature whatsoever as a modern Indian playwright or theatre practitioner. Now, this is absolutely ridiculous. And whose fault is it? It's ours. Because we have not transferred our knowledge or even conducted the preliminary research into Tagore's theatre that should have also been translated or written in non-Bengali languages. So we claim Gurudev as our own, rightly so, and we know everything about Gurudev, rightly so, because it's in Bangla and so we know Bangla. But we will always berate any non-Bengali who says that, what did he give us? Prove it. Because we won't prove it. We just keep it to ourselves. Where is the research? Now, in fact, even if you think in terms of Bangla, the amount of research done on Rabindranath's theatre is quite low compared to the amount of research, obviously, that has gone into his literature in Bangla, or even for that matter, paintings, music, and other aspects of his artistry. So that's, I hope, a provocative note on which to begin. And the next thing that I should say is that what I'll be presenting today is from the perspective of the scene designers, the painters, the costumiers, some of the actors too, who worked alongside Tagore and left some record behind in their paintings of what happened on stage as far as the Tagorean theatre is concerned. Now, this too is actually surprisingly very, very limited. For instance, Abanindranath was around in the 19th century when Tagore started his works on in the theatrical domain. But there doesn't appear to have been any painting or sketches done by the Tagores in the 19th century of, for instance, those particular plays that you know very well, Balmiki Pratibha, Bisharjan, Raja Rani, Mayar Khela from the 19th century. We do have photographs, but I am not going to be showing you the photographs you know so well that you probably know them by heart. This is not about photography. This is an illustrated lecture about paintings and theatre. I will mention some of the photographs, and I will also initially at this point also let you know that photographs are a wonderful way to preserve, document a particular theatrical heritage. No doubt about that. If we did not have the photographs that we do have of Tagore's Balmiki Pratibha or Bisharjan or Dakkar, we would not be able to reconstruct a lot visually of these plays, of these productions. But at the same time, what excites me sometimes more is how a visual artist tries to express through his paintings, and I'll give you another, not just his, her paintings too, the domain of theatre, the world behind the stage of the theatrical production. These are things that have not been researched, written about, studied, as a result of which I would expect younger scholars to do this work, which is waiting to be conducted and lying over here, in fact, in Kolkata itself, to be dug up and written about. So these are connecting the expressive functions of a particular painter who himself or herself is a creative artist with the theatre production with which, of Tagore's, with which that painter has been part or has witnessed. The period that I am talking about The period that that I will be talking about is in fact, as I was saying, very small by the standards of Tagore's life, because it is only after Tagore's group came to Kolkata with the productions that he himself staged in Shantiniketan that we see the first of these paintings. So this is actually from 1916 onwards, from Phalguni onwards, to the mid 1930s. So during about a maximum of 20 years, we have a considerable amount, not huge, but still a considerable amount of paintings which are documenting Tagore's theatre. And that's the immediate focus of my attention. As I've said, it's curious. I cannot give you answers. It's curious why there weren't any before 1915. There might be some lying around somewhere that we do not know too much about. But even more curious why after the mid-30s up till 1941, there were after all 6 or 7 years of major productions of Tagore's dance dramas, the Nrityanatya, there doesn't appear to be too much of painterly reflections or interpretations of those works. Why was that? How did that happen? Maybe I will arouse these questions in your own minds, and maybe you will be able to find the answers or suggest some answers to that. So let me proceed, and I will do this all the time, showing you the occasional slide to make the points that I'm making. I'm going to be proceeding chronologically from Phalguni down to Tasher Desh. Not that many productions, but enough for you to get a representative sample of what I'm talking about. I think we need to switch this one off. Phalguni, as all of you are aware, the first performance of it was in Shantiniketan in 1915. But when the production traveled to Kolkata in 1916, that was the first time you get, and that was actually the first time that any theatre group came to Kolkata. Everyone was very curious about what Gurudev was doing in Shantiniketan with his students, and they had heard about it. And many people from Kolkata had actually traveled to Shantiniketan ever since 1908 to 1915, watching these performances over there. We have lots of accounts of these, but not much other visual evidence. So, in 1916, the production comes to Kolkata, Phalguni, and half or more of these paintings, reproductions, you must have seen yourselves. Some of these, however, you may not have seen. And about half of the ones that I'm going to be showing you are presently in the custody of Victoria Memorial. They belong to Rabindra Bharati Society, but they have been loaned to Victoria Memorial, and they will be here for, I think, a major exhibit will be opening in November, December this year of these. So you will be able to see them yourselves after they had been with the Rabindra Bharati Society, locked up in their almiras for so many decades. But still, these are wonderful. Let me just explain them as we go along. This is Rabindranath, as some of you will know. This is Rabindranath in Phalguni as Kobi Shekhar. You have seen the more famous painting of Rabindranath as Andho Baul, but what you may not know is that Rabindranath did a double role in this production. And this is a difficult thing to do. People don't realize how tough it is for someone to do two major roles in the same production, and that too at the age that Tagore was at that time, 55, among his all kinds of other occupations and preoccupations, let me put it this way. Now, Kobi Shekhar is the court poet in the prologue of Phalguni. So that is Rabindranath, as Kobi Shekhar. I would like to make a point for those of you who might have noticed the dhuti that Rabindranath is wearing as Kobi Shekhar. He is making a fashion statement that I think a lot of you are probably would be very envious of in 100 years ago, because that was a multicolored dhuti, which is rather uncommon for anybody to wear 100 years ago. Not impossible, but certainly on stage. And of course, you would understand that this is a court, that he is a court poet of Kobi Shekhar, but still, it's making a statement, that's for sure. And then you have this famous painting. The other one was also the previous one. I should have told you. Sorry, my mistake. Abanindranath's. This is also obviously the most famous of paintings of Rabindranath in performance as on the Baul in 1916. It's curious that even, and here is the disconnect that I was referring to earlier. Even acknowledged art historians, I won't name the person concerned, but written a masterly work on Abanindranath's paintings, referred to, quote unquote, the stick that Tagore was carrying in this painting. Obviously, as you know very well, this is not a stick. Ondo Baul is singing to the accompaniment of the musical instrument. So that's what's happening. Unfortunately, the world of painting is in its own world, the world of theatre is in its own world, and they are not connecting, which should never have been the case. I am not competent to comment on the painterly aspects of Abanindranath or Gaganendranath, because I should tell you though that this enormous swirl, this is a magnificent way of depicting someone who is actually dancing like a Baul would, as we have all seen. So Abanindranath has caught that, captured that, I would say,